Welcome everybody. Thanks for making your way over to the Arctic Club. We will have a couple special remarks from Cynthia Sullivan and Rob McKenna. Then we will share some stories.
It's amazing that this anniversary almost slipped by. We were saying to each other, it's remarkable that you picked up on it. It would have been a shame to miss the opportunity. Secondly, it is absolutely tremendous to see so many people who were part of the formation of this county and its charter, who were involved very early on. Third, when I was sitting in the audience, I kept looking at the dais, thinking there's something wrong. Who's missing? And I counted 1, 2, 3, 9. Oh, I get it. It's because I was thinking there should be 13. and the reason for that, and I'm so happy that Councilmember Lang is here. The reason that I think that way is that Councilmember Lang recruited me to be on the districting committee, which drew the map with 13 districts. And he had found lots of ways to get me involved with the county, which I deeply appreciated, starting with the King County Open Space Oversight Committee. But that districting process was a great learning process. If you don't know anything about districting, serve on the committee once. You'll learn everything you ever needed to know, right, about that, as Rod has. But the story I want to tell about that is that at every meeting we had, the four of us, the 2 Democrats, the 2 Republicans, Larry Gossett would sit right behind me. I mean, literally right behind me, because it was very important that that one of the new districts be created, where in fact it was created, so that we would have a chance at a minority majority district, and that's exactly what happened. And I thought that map worked out pretty well. We got some good people onto the council, and it was a tremendous learning experience. And then 2 years later, I joined the council as well. My last couple thoughts are these. Number one, I look at the county council today and I think about when I got to serve there, and the quality of council member is really pretty amazing. We were talking at our table, Chris and Cynthia and I, about the enormous amount of work that went into the comp plan and putting into effect the Growth Management Act. It was an incredible amount of work, and if you look around the county today, I think it has worked. I think it has been effective, and a lot of credit goes to those council members who were serving on the council in '93 in that era for that success. The second and last point I want to make is that having had the privilege of going on to work in another government after the county, I really appreciate the quality of the staff who work at the county, not just in the county council chambers, but also in the executive branch. I mean, really superb, public-minded, public-spirited people who are top-notch. There's no way we could have done what we did without people like Rebecca Cusack, Angelica, and all the team some of whom are still there and are still doing good work. So congratulations to the current council for maintaining that very high level of quality.
I'm here to rattle a few bones.
Yeah, let her rip, Cynthia.
I joined the council as an ingenue in 1984. And I have to tell you, like most 30-year-old women in those days, I believed in the Constitution and democracy and public participation and a whole lot of aspects of what was called good government. So my first year on the council, I was trying to educate myself about the county budget and how it worked and all the policies that drove it and all of the laws that governed it and so forth. And I was working late, neglecting my family, and I left my office about 8 o'clock one night, and I noticed all the other lights were out on the council floor. This was when we were on the 4th floor. But there was one light under then Chairman Gary Grant's door. And I thought, oh, Gary just forgot to turn off his light when he left, because we were all very energy conscious in those days. And so I went over and I respectfully knocked, and I just walked in because I was just going to flip off the light. And what do I see? I see Gary Grant, Bob Grieve, Paul Barden, and Bill Reams, all with cold Schlitz beers, carving up the county budget. They were so embarrassed and shamefaced, and I said, fellas, deal me in. And that, my friends, is how the Fremont Public Association became the behemoth that it is today. The other thing I want to go back another year prior to Chris taking over growth management chair, which he did a phenomenal job on, was I chaired it the year before he did and conducted some of the first hearings for that communist plot called growth management in rural King County. And this is God's honest truth, I had to take armed sheriff's deputies with me to those meetings because people came with their guns. We haven't had discussions like that in a while in King County, but we're due, I think. I think this experiment in government and democracy for this little part of the world has proved to be, I think, very successful. And I was just reminded about the Earth Conservation Corps, or civilian, what is it called now? Earth Corps, yeah, is coming back, and that was one of my happiest achievements. And I just think the county is doing extremely well under all of the current membership's hand.
So this is a true story. I, at the time, was in the House of Representatives, and the Republicans on the Redistricting Commission got a hold of me one afternoon and said, we're going to draw a dead-on 50-50 district in South King County, and we want you to be the candidate. And I thought about it for like 15 seconds and said, oh, yeah, county council, full-time, more money than the House. Interesting stuff. Good idea, I'll do that. Great, went through the whole process. I should have been sitting behind you because when you finished the map, you guys had my wrong address. That's right. So my wife started crying. That was an accident. My kids, and we had to go out that weekend and find an apartment that was both in the 13th County Council District and the 31st Legislative District. But we did it, and we never looked back. And I was reflecting today that I think there is, and you hear King County people say this, King County is a family. There are a lot of us who've been around this government for a very long time. It's like the former Deputy County Executive, Roland Fatlin, is about to walk in. Yeah? Fix my tie? Okay. I started out as a campaign staff person on Tim Hill's first re-election campaign, his only re-election campaign, and then served in his administration in the Department of Licensing. And then when I was in the House, I was also a county employee along with Helen Summers. The two of us are both county employees at the time. And then spent 8 years on the council. And now I'm back working over in the admin building full-time for my good friend, the assessor. And so King County's been a part of my life for a long time. And what you all need, whether you're new or old to this government, the thing you got to take is this. This really is one of the most well-run, progressive, forward-thinking governments in North America. When you go to like National Association of Counties meetings, it's often King County is the leader. We do great work, and we can be proud of that.
Well, on the way in here, I had to excuse myself and go to the men's room, and it brought back a story. When the bus tunnel was being excavated along 3rd Avenue in front of the courthouse, at the end of the workday, the people that were working on it would connect pressure to clean up the space at the bottom. So it was a high pressure error but connected to the water so they could do it. Well, one of the workers inadvertently connected it to the water system of the courthouse itself. And my legislative aide at the time happened to be using the men's room on the 4th floor. And the pressure built up, and it blew up through the urinals and the toilets all the way up to the 4th floor and beyond. So I thought that was a pretty exciting story. Councilmember Pete Van Reichbauer and I were involved in a couple of trips to Taiwan, to our sister county, Kaohsiung County, the very southern tip of the island. And the reason for our visit, the first visit, was because they were sending over annually members of their council. They had a county executive and a county council, but the county council was a little larger than ours. It was about 100 people. And so they always had a big contingent come over. And Ruby Chow, who was on the council, and her legislative aide, May Ray, whose family was still over there, said, we've got to reciprocate. So we got a contingent that went over, and that was trip number one, and May Ray and her contingent over, her connections over there, took us on a trip all the way down the island from Taipei down to Kaohsiung County, and it was a wonderful trip. Well, within a year, we got the word that the county executive had been murdered. And it turned out that he wasn't the most upright as far as citizen, as far as all of his connections went. And it ended up in him getting murdered. And so Pete and I and one of the other council members were, I don't know if we were chosen or we put our hands up, but we went to the funeral for their county exec. And Pete and I were going to the formal ceremony for it, and one of our escorts said, "You can't." He was talking to me. He said, "You can't go. You can't go." And I didn't know I said, "What's the problem?" He says, "You're wearing a red tie, and you cannot wear a red tie to a funeral." So I had to change my. And I'd tell you the rest of the stories about the trip, but they're all classified.
I want to add a footnote to the comments by Bruce Lang when he and I were invited back because of the assassination of the county executive of Taipei, or actually Kaohsiung. They paid for that trip. That was not a public trip. They paid to have us come back and represent King County.
I thought you footed the bill, Pete.
You don't know me. You don't know Pete. You must have me confused with Larry Phillips.
Larry would have been declared as salmon exhibitor.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for being here and joining us. I wish that we actually could do this once a year. Joe, that's on you next time. But this is just such a great treat to see people that made up county government. The thing I wanted to share with everybody this morning was the fact that, we can disagree in Olympia and we can disagree in Congress, and we seem to be divided. But on the King County Council, we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I pointed out last night when we had a reception in honor of Jeannie Cole Wells that she and I definitely do not vote on the same wavelength. But I always want to be in her company because this lady brings a lot of glue to hold people together. And she's passionate about the issues like everyone on the county council. I tell you, again, in terms of land use, I wanted to say this afternoon. Nobody in this room, nobody in King County has made such an impact on land use in King County than Cynthia Sullivan, whether as a staff person or as a member, and she's never gotten her due for the fact that she has saved so much of our land. I want to, before we salute everybody, Cynthia Sullivan. And there's so many people here who do so much, and then, you know, whatever circumstances, they leave the office. But there are a lot of people here that this gives us a chance to recognize them. And if we don't honor our own, we're never going to be honored as a group. And I think it's so important to thank Rod Dembowski for using this opportunity and taking the initiative to do this, because it's an opportunity to come back. Because if we don't understand our history, how we got here, and what we're doing, we can't lead. And I want to thank you, Rod. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers to Rod.
So I think I've done too much, but again, I want you to understand, the neat thing about county government is we're a marathon.
Yeah.
We're not a sprint. And as a result, we can disagree without being disagreeable.
So well said, Rod. And I mean, it's
He gets credit all the time.
I mean, I still got a full head up here. Come on.
so well said, Pete and Rod. And it's just, I have to repeat again and again how wonderful it is to be here. Can you imagine having a meeting like this with the legislature and we had the old timers night. But this is really special, and I am thrilled to be here, and I hope that we do repeat this occasion another time. So to all of you who have served on the council, whenever that was, and for those who are still serving, I want to salute all of you and all of the others who are here who contribute to this wonderful, transparent, as was said, and functional government that people can count on and gets results. So a cheer, a salute to all of you. A toast.
It was 50 years ago that 15 of us were elected countywide to draft a home rule charter. The process is laid out in the state constitution, in the article dealing with counties. But no one had ever made use of this provision. It was just sitting there, and King County was the pioneer. It led the way in the use of this provision in the state constitution. It was an amazing experience. No one understood what freeholders were. And I remember a reporter from one of our 2 local newspapers. Yes, in those days, we had 2 papers. And he said to me, "Lois, just what on earth does a county freeloader do?" The 15 of us ranged terrifically in political philosophy, from very conservative to quite liberal. And it was very hard for us to reach a decision about anything. There was a lot of compromise in the process. One of the toughest decisions that we had to make was just how big should this new county council be? After a lot of debate and discussion, we all agreed on 9. Now, at that time, this was a huge increase to go from 3 to 9, but we did it. You may not remember, but there was a long list of independent elected county officials. Everything from the King County coroner, the treasurer, the auditor. There wasn't a dog catcher, but there was darn near everything else. We trimmed that list down to 2 people. The prosecuting attorney, which is required in the state constitution, and the county assessor. The reason we did the assessor was simple. The newspapers were full of all kinds of outrageous mischief that was taking place in the county assessor's office at that time. And we felt that giving people the vote on the county assessor would help to restore their confidence in the form of government. Many of the independent elected officials had quote, flower funds, unquote. The flower fund was supposed to be used for deaths, for weddings, for the birth of a child. But the county employees were required to contribute to that fund or they would get fired. The newspapers exposed the fact that those funds were nothing but campaign chests for re-election of the county officers. Not good. So what I'm trying to tell you is King County was in pretty bad shape and it badly needed reform. No system of government is perfect, but I think that over the years, the charter has served the people of King County very well. At the age of 97, I'm proud to have been a part of that procedure. And I'm very happy to be able to be here with you to celebrate this very worthwhile document. Thank you all so much.